Hey, this is Demetria Clark with Homes by Demetria. And in our podcast today, I'm going to be talking about what a flood zone is. I have lived in areas of the country where I needed to purchase flood insurance. And I've lived in areas of the country where I didn't need to purchase flood insurance, but it was probably a good idea. And one of the places that was Pine Island, Florida. I don't know if you remember the big hurricane that hit Pine Island and devastated the bridge in Matlacha and the homes in St. James City and some of the houses in Bokeelia. We had owned 2 houses there and neither of them ended up sustaining any damage. From what we understand, we don't own them anymore. And neither of them were in a flood zone, but I still had flood insurance because it was an island and lots of areas near us were on the flood map. So I used that as an option. So if we had ever had a hurricane like the one that went through, we'd have additional coverage. And I believe it was about $500 a year. And if we had been completely wiped out by Irma, that would have been a really good insurance policy for us to have. Now, I'm not telling you to get flood insurance or not get a flood insurance. I'm not an insurance advisor. I'm not federal government, and I'm not a flood map expert. But what I am going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about flood zones. A flood zone map is a geographic representation that identifies areas at risk of flooding. It's exactly what it sounds like. It delineates different zones based on the likelihood and severity of flooding in a particular area. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not by an ocean, I'm not by a lake, I'm far from this river, I don't really need to worry about flood risk. But as we're seeing things with climate change and, the way that the land is changing around us, new things being built, things that were natural flood barriers being removed, it's never a bad idea to check out how your house is on the flood map. These maps are typically created and maintained by government agencies such as Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, in the United States. Flood zone maps take into account various factors, including historical data, topography, rainfall patterns, river flow rates, and coastal storm surge potential. The maps are used to assess flood risk and support land use planning, insurance rate determinations, and emergency management efforts. So when we originally went and looked at our first home on Pine Island, Florida, we asked specifically not to be shown homes that were in flood areas, which made our search radius much smaller. The zones in the flood map are often labeled using alphanumeric codes or designations which indicate the level of flood risk. The most commonly used flood zones in the United States, according to FEMA, include special flood hazard areas, so that's SFHAS. These are areas with the highest risk of flooding. They are typically labeled Zone A, Zone AE, AH, Zone AO, Zone AR, Zone A99, Zone V, Zone VE, or Zone V1-V30, depending on the specific characteristics of the area. Moderate flooding hazard areas are labeled having a moderate risk and are usually labeled Zone B or Zone X. Minimal flooding areas have a lower risk of flooding and are labeled C or Zone X unshaded. So for moderate, the Zone X is shaded, and for minimal, the Zone X is unshaded on the flood zone map. And this will illustrate on the flood zone map. It'll show you an aerial map, and it'll also show you like a traditional map style, so you can see the street names and stuff. Flood zone maps are important tools for individuals, communities, and governments to understand and mitigate flood risk. They help homeowners and businesses determine whether they're required to have flood insurance, inform land development decisions, and aid in emergency response and planning in flood-prone areas. It's worth noting that flood zone maps are periodically updated as new data becomes available and environmental conditions change. Flood insurance can be obtained through the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, in the United States. I don't know what's available in other countries. I only know it's available in the United States. The NFIP is administered by FEMA and offers flood insurance policies to property owners and participating communities. So to purchase flood insurance through the NFIP, you can follow these steps. You can determine your flood risk, so go and look at the map. Consult flood zone maps, contact your local government or insurance to determine if your property is located in a high-risk flood zone. The next you want to do is contact an insurance agent. So contact a licensed insurance agent who offers flood insurance policies. You can search online directories or contact your existing homeowners or property insurance provider to inquire about flood insurance options. Then you're going to want to obtain a quote, so provide the necessary information about your property to the insurance agent. And this will include things like the location, the type, the value. The agent will assess your flood risk and provide you with a quote. Then you choose your coverage. So you review your coverage options, choose the policy that suits your needs. So when we purchased our flood insurance policy, it was actually like one option was available. We didn't have any other options given to us. It may be different in other areas. Then you want to complete the application, fill out the application form provided by the insurance agent. So you're going to have to provide them with details about your property and all that fun stuff, right? And then you're going to pay the premium. It's important to note that there's typically a 30-day waiting period for flood insurance coverage. So you want to get flood insurance before you're afraid about needing flood insurance. You know what I mean? So premiums will vary depending upon factors such as the flood risk, the coverage amount, and the deductible chosen. If you're outside of the United States, inquire with your local insurance provider in your country about flood insurance needs specific to your region. Insurance offerings and providers may vary depending upon your location. So, it is definitely something that could really be beneficial. It is definitely something that you could use to make your home safer and that you have better insurance coverage against things that you're not really sure you got covered. So you definitely want to, remember that water is one of the biggest things that'll take a house down. So if your roof leaks, if you got water in the basement, you've got flooding, those are things that can really make keeping your home in shipshape condition hard if you don't have good coverage and you don't have a nice dry home. Thank you so much for listening. This is Homes by Demetria. My name is Demetria Clark. I'm a realtor with Long & Foster in Martinsville, Virginia. And you can contact me at 276-201-6393. Sorry, new number, new phone, who dat? And so you can definitely reach out to me. You can also find me at longandfoster.com/Demetria Clark or at Demetria.com, DEMETRIA.com. Thanks for listening and have a great day.